46,000 in the world. Today we are honored to have Bo Egger sharing updates on the Reds and other items. Owen's going to introduce Bo a little bit later. We also have some updates from other members, and we have a new member introduction, Justin Austin. So let's give a round of applause for Bo Egger for attending today. As a reminder, we're going to be back at the View next Thursday. Larry Culp, COG Aerospace, will be at the View. We're expecting a record crowd, so make sure you get your sign-ups early. And we actually have a record number of executives from GE coming as well, 14. So they're committed to Rotary, and we're going to introduce them to Rotary next week. So everyone be on their best behavior. We're going to kick it off with the national anthem given to us by John Firemeyer and Janet Metzler.
Thank you, President Eric. It's great to be here today. And before I get started, I want to point out that it was just a few years ago when I did the invocation, I mentioned Joey Votto in the invocation. He went on to hit home runs in 9 consecutive games. So just saying, whatever I say, bow your head, and let's get this thing started. God, thank you that we can all gather here today in unity as a group of Rotarians. As Rotarians, we seek to make a positive impact in our community. And thank you for leaders such as Bo Egger, who is a leading voice in our community, who leads with positivity and fun. As we enjoy today's meeting, we're also thinking about those that have been impacted by the flooding in our area and beyond. Keep them safe and provide them shelter. And last but not least, help Ellie Dela Cruz win the MVP. Now, thank you. We will do the four-way test. Is it the truth?
Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you.
We'll see Wes up here a little bit more starting July. Turn it over to Nancy Reeves to announce our guests and Unitarians.
Thank you, President Eric. It's good to see everybody on this beautiful spring day. It's great to have 5 people that are looking to join our awesome club. And when I introduce you, if you will please stand up so we can welcome you. I appreciate that. The first person we have is, okay, I got to this closer so I'm going to my glasses on. Jamie Bierman. And it's Jamie, it's she. Shame on me. Even that. And she's the company's HR element. And she is here as a guest of our Silver Leaders membership level. Michael Sheston. So welcome. All right, next we have Jeff Smoker. He is a Fiasco. And interesting, when I met Jeff this morning, that he actually saw somebody with their Rotary bowling shirt on. guest who brought her? Michael Shatson, yay! Welcome. Thank you all. Remember, once they become a member, so you invite them to join us.
Thanks, Nancy. All right, it's my pleasure to bring out Mr. Michael Schatzman to introduce Justin Austin.
Thanks, President Eric. Okay, everybody, no pressure, but our speaker today, Mo Egger, goes to a lot of raucous, loud sporting events. Yep, Mo shaking his head yes. So you know where this is going. Ready, everybody? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon!
Thank you. Well done. It's my pleasure to introduce our newest member, Justin Austin. Justin is the Senior Vice President of AON, where he leads the transportation and logistics practice for the greater Cincinnati region. He's a nationally recognized expert in the field, helping companies from large fleets to mid-sized companies navigate complex risks and develop smarter, safer operations. Justin's connection to trucking runs deep. He grew up in a trucking family. His dad drove for 35 years, and his family owned a small company. That foundation helped fuel a career that's included key roles at USI and TQL, where he led major initiatives like creating TQL's Mexico department and boosting cross-border efficiency. He holds degrees from Morehead State University and Thomas More University. And his leadership extends beyond the office. He serves on the boards of the Gearing Center and Upspring, and has previously served with the YMCA and Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Greater Cincinnati. Justin's work has earned him some pretty impressive honors, including top 50 rising stars in insurance, Cincinnati's 40 under 40 list, the Gearing Center Rising Leader of the Year, top 10 under 40 from the Greater Cincinnati Insurance Team. On the personal side, Justin lives downtown at the Artistry near Sawyer Point, and you may have seen him on the news earlier this week on Channel 5 when we interviewed him about returning from Lisbon and covering the flood. He has two young sons, ages 4 and 7, and he's a big fan of all things sports, both watching and playing. Please join me in giving a warm, Rotary welcome to Justin Austin.
All right, today's meeting sponsor is Bonnie Reddick. So thanks, Bonnie, for sponsoring today's meeting.
Right, when I started out, I was in business since I was 5 years old with my dad. So this is the song. Have you ever gone fishing on a hot summer day, sitting on the lawn and walking away, fell in the river with my new Sunday pants, got out and did the hoochie-coochie dance.
Bonnie. All right, so it's my pleasure to bring up two of our energetic young stars in the Rotary Club. Taylor Young and Ben Busby to update us on Rotary Connect. And there is an event tonight that I know they'll talk about, but you can still sign up and join us for tonight's drinking.
Good afternoon. So just real quick, I'm going to talk about tonight's event. It's going to be a little bit to be there at 5:30, so come there. You don't have to do the tasting. Welcome everybody to the bar and get some drinks and things there. So we're looking forward to this. A little bit different, a little bit unique. So hope everybody comes and enjoys the bar tonight. And then Taylor's going to talk about this.
Yep, so after Carrollton, which is where we're at tonight, we're going to be going to Par 3 in May, and there's actually a bit of a challenge here with this one. So we're going to be sponsoring 30 opportunities for prospective members only to play around on one of the 3 9-hole indoor miniature golf courses they have. So it's your opportunity to beat out Michael on bringing people to the event. With that being said, the 30 prospective members have the slot to register on DAC TV, but if you would like to bring an additional guest or come just on your own, we welcome you. It is $16 if you want to do the round. They do have fabulous food there and also fabulous drinks there at Par 3. So that will be on May 29th from 5:30 to 8 p.m. Par 3 putt on the levee. Been there multiple times. They have some fabulous themed holes, so it's not your traditional windmill or church door opening type of course on the holes. They've got Reds theme, Bengals theme. They've even got Kentucky Motor Speedway and Kentucky Wildcats theme, which I will say that Kentucky Wildcats is the hardest hole to get on to use actual hardwood. So hopefully we will see you tonight at Carrigan. If not, the challenge is on to beat out Mr. Schatzman on Brendan Perspective till May 29th at Par 3.
So we want to congratulate to our March Madness winner, Tom Noonan. Tom wins first prize of $600, and Fred Fisher won second prize of $60, and Lillian Lerma gets her $20 back, being the first out. As a longtime Florida Gator fan and hometown growing up in Gainesville, I can say I was over the moon for us to win our 3rd national title. So we're all winners, and we'll do this. March Madness comes around every year. It's a great opportunity to have a little competition, a little fun. And speaking of fun, let's go ahead and just split the pot. We'll have Mo pick the winning ticket. No pressure, Mo.
All right, here we go. All 6 digits. 384 530. 384 530. We have a winner. Not very good.
Is it in the deck? Well, thanks, Don. You not only won, but you also gave out a ticket to the next one. So we have some birthdays. Jim Yunker, April 10th. Bob Brinstetter on the 13th. And Angie Fergus on April 13th. I believe they're not here, but let's go ahead and just a quick happy birthday on 3. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday! Family Rotary, I want to recognize Rotarian Chuck Martz. Where Chuck is, there he is. So Chuck and wife Sue want to celebrate them on the birth of their newest granddaughter, Elena Ray Martz, on March 22nd in Denver. Congratulations. And you might have seen on your tables, you have these books by Randy Overbeck, who's right over here. He did the professional learning series this at 11. He will be selling these books after the meeting. The books on your table are not yours, but you can buy them from Mr. Overbeck immediately following the meeting. And Randy, we appreciate you doing the leadership series today and being here to give us some new guidance in how to write and also to give us reading materials for the summertime. Thank you, Randy. So we have some updates on kind of Rotarians going on our high school environmental leadership conference. That has moved to Friday at Dayton High School. Thanks to Ariel Miller for putting that on. We look forward to sharing news and photos with you on social media. Cheers from the Environmental Sustainability Committee. Thanks, Ariel. Raise your hand and let's recognize you for all your great work. On Tuesday, April 15th, from 10:45 to 11:45, the adopted class volunteers will spend an hour each month with at-risk fourth grade children at school for creative performing arts, learning about various topics of the volunteer's choice. Examples of activities are science experiments, learning about Thanksgiving and how to set the table, playing a stock market game, etc. Looking for 5 volunteers each month. Contract Rotarian Brian Bowling to volunteer to find out further information. And tonight from 6:30 to 9:30, we have our upcoming Rotary After Hours, hosted by Rotarian Kate Crosley and a partner Matt Kobe on Taproot Lane. Tomorrow night, sorry. We probably wouldn't want you to show up tonight, but tomorrow night. Max is home as neighbor to Vice President J.D. Vance. Because of the close proximity to the Vice VP's house, we require all RSVPs redacted, so if needed, they can be provided to the Secret Service agents on premise to allow you to pass any barricades. Please feel free to bring your spouse and or a guest. The more the merrier. Registration is a must for the Rotary After Hours, and again, it is tomorrow night from 6:30 to 9:30. Upcoming member coffee on Tuesday, April 15th, tax day from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. So after you put your taxes in the mail or electronically filed to the IRS, you can come to Neighborhood Coffee at Viva Coffee Roasters on Madison Road in O'Brien Hill. And as a reminder, we're going to have a phenomenal celebration for the club on Off to the Races Derby Day on May 3rd. The cost to attend is just $45. We will have delicious appetizers, a signature cocktail, split the pot, and a chance to bet on the horses. And we just got an update on the big basket. We're getting all sorts of great items there, and it should be raise a lot of money for the club. It will be held in Stepping Stones in Norwood, so break out the big hats and the nice suits, and let's have a wonderful time coming together. Register in DAC DB. It's my pleasure to bring up Owen Rassman to introduce today's program.
Thank you, President Eric. Before we get started, I recognize we've got the red light table back. Also, a couple weeks ago when Frank Shooter spoke, my good friend Charlie Frank introduced Charlie's here as a guest today, a friend of ours. Just want to say hi to Charlie. Charlie, being the son of John Frank, our oldest, not oldest member, but longest, 55, 68 years. I'm glad Mo's here today. Let me give you, everybody seems to know him, but I'm going to give you a quick bio. But Mo has been in the afternoon drive host on ESPN1530 since 2009. He's also heard on WLW and on ESPN Radio. Mo also contributes to the University of Cincinnati football and basketball programming and is a contributor to the Cincinnati Bengals Radio Network. Mo has written for The Athletic, Forbes, and Bearcat Journal. Not my fault. He's a graduate of Scott High School in Taylor Mill, an alumnus of the University of Dayton, and his radio career dates back to his college years when he started as WLW 700 WLW producer in the late 1990s. Mo visited Rotary like 15 years ago, I saw a picture. 4 years. He said he doesn't remember. I didn't remember him. He doesn't remember being here. He doesn't remember what we talked about. But anyway, Mo lives on the west side of Cincinnati with his wife Molly, their daughter Crosley, and their little dog Bella. I give you Mo Egger.
Hey, can you guys hear me? Yeah. Oh boy. No. The radio guy has audio issues. That's a good start. Thank you guys for having me. I hope that doesn't tip over. Let's do that. Okay. By the way, thank you, Owen. He read my bio, which took about 45 seconds. I read the bio of next week's speaker, Larry Culp, the CEO of GE Aerospace. It'll take you an hour to read that guy's bio. So you're getting off easy. Do I sound okay? There's a lot of echo. Something's happening. Keep talking. Keep going. They tell me that all the time. Randy, really quick, you're going to be selling your books outside here when we're done. This is the time of year, it's springtime, and if you're like me, you're thinking vacations. My daughter has spring break next week, and we're going down to Florida, and so I've been thinking about picking up some light reading. So I got the little flyer here for Randy Overbeck's book, Cruel Lessons, which is about 4 kids dead. Can Assistant Superintendent Ken Parks unmask the drug dealer poisoning his students before more kids die? Light reading, Randy. I'm excited. This is exactly what we're doing. I was asked to do this maybe 2 months ago, and I said yes. I didn't know what I was saying yes to. I didn't remember that I had spoken to the Rotary Club, whatever it was, 4 years ago, 8 years ago. But I said yes, and I asked, what do you want me to talk about? I think it was Sarah who said, you do a sports talk show, right? And I said, well, yeah. And she goes, why don't you talk about sports? So, you can just listen to the show. I've done the Afternoon Drive show on ESPN1530 since 2009. And it sounds really cliche, but I really do have the greatest job in the world, man. I'm really, really lucky. I was here when Brent Suter talked, and I'm a huge Brent Suter fan. I have been since before he joined the Reds. Just a first-class guy. Charlie Frank can tell you what he does above and beyond what he does on the field, when he does the Reds Community Fund and other initiatives is awesome. But Brent has this really cool life story, and you think about it. He grew up here, made the big leagues, and is now pitching for his hometown team. I stopped well short of that, but in my own way, I get a chance every day to talk about the teams that I grew up loving. I was born in Taylorville, right over the river, which is why I speak slowly. And with the exception of, for 3 years, we moved to New Jersey when I was a kid. Growing up here, my dad was a huge Reds fan, so I became a Reds fan. My dad was a huge Bengals fan, so I became a Bengals fan. My dad was a huge UK basketball fan, so I became a UC basketball fan, despite that. But I was 13 years old when the Reds won the World Series in 1990. Now I get a chance to talk about that team. And I was 11 years old, and we were in New Jersey in 1988. I cried when the Bengals lost the Super Bowl. My mom let me stay home from school the next day, which was pretty cool because I was the only Bengals fan in New Jersey. Now I get to talk about that team. I was a huge UC fan growing up, and I get to talk about the Bearcats every day. And college basketball in this town. I'm a huge college basketball fan. So I'm really, really lucky that I get a chance to do what I do. And I don't say that with any amount of ego or anything. It's just, I'm really fortunate Since the time I was 9 years old, I wanted to be on the radio, and I get a chance to be on the radio in my hometown talking about my favorite team. So I'm really, really lucky. It does mean, though, that at times I've got to be critical of the teams that I care so much about, and that can sometimes cause friction, but that's okay. I think it's a really interesting time to be a sports fan. I think it's a really interesting time to be a sports fan here in Cincinnati because, you know, sports are about stars, right? Like, sports are about stars. You turn on ESPN, they're not talking about the ninth guy on the bench, they're talking about LeBron James. They're not, you know, talking about the dude who backed up Tom Brady. They talk about Tom Brady. But the cool thing is now here in Cincinnati, we have stars. Like, we have Ellie De La Cruz. Ellie De La Cruz is going to be a massive star. He already is. He plays here, and he's going to play here for the rest of the decade at least. And Hunter Green was on the cover of Sports Illustrated when he was in high school as a guy who, when he got to the big leagues, could be like the face of baseball. And he pitches here. And not only does he pitch here, like, I always talk about things in sports, things in life rarely live up to the hype. It's why I'm a huge LeBron James fan. Like, LeBron James, you know, if you remember, like, watching him in high school, there was no way he could match the hype that accompanied his arrival in pro basketball. And not only did he match the hype, he's exceeded it. Like, he's talked about as maybe the greatest player of all time. Like, that's remarkable. So Hunter Green is not quite there, but he's starting to match the hype. He was awesome in the second half of last year. He was off to a great start. He stayed up late on Monday night. He nearly threw a complete game shutout, which his team badly needed. And so we have stars, and then with the Bengals, we have Joe Burrow, man. I mean, we have a guy who you could claim is the best quarterback in the NFL. And so I think that's really cool. But what's really interesting is, you know, talking about this every day, can the teams win with those stars? You know, we've had a lot of teams here in town that were good. You know, if you think of like the Bengals during the Andy Dalton years, some really good teams. But you always kind of had a sense like, they're probably never really going to win a championship because of the limitations of the quarterback. There's no limitations to Joe Burrow. The question is, can the Bengals figure out a way to win while they have it? It's, the draft is in 2 weeks from today. And I've talked about this on my show at lunch. Like, the draft is always important. I think this draft in 2 weeks will determine whether or not the Bengals win the Super Bowl with Joe Burrow as the quarterback. Like, this is really exciting. It's also pretty heavy. And then if you add to it, like, the whole stadium component, and we're going to extend the lease. Like, there's a lot happening with the Bengals right now. This is really a pivotal point. But it has such huge upside. The Bengals played in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, and it's not far-fetched to think that they could play in another. And the Reds obviously haven't won in forever. I was 13 years old, as I said, when we last won the World Series. But before you can build a championship team, you got to have guys worth building around. And the Reds do. You know, Ellie De La Cruz, Tyler Stevenson, Nick Lindolo, Matt McClain, a handful of others. Some of those guys got to stay healthy and prove they can stay healthy. But there's a core in place, and so. You know, the team 2 years ago, I felt like re-energized this town when it comes to baseball, and now people are paying attention. The question is, can you take this core and can you win with it? So I am really stoked to have the job that I have and talk about these things in the coming years. And it's so much fun. It's so much fun. People say to me sometimes, like, is it better for you when the teams lose? And I go, why? Like, first of all, when the teams lose, there's not as much interest. When there's not as much interest, not as many people that listen to sports talk radio, and I'm not getting invited to luncheons to talk to people. When they're winning, when folks are engaged and they're excited and they're watching the games, like when the teams are bad, we really don't talk about the games, right? Like at the end of the Marvin Lewis run in Cincinnati, on a Monday morning or a Monday afternoon, nobody cared about like, oh, what should they have done on 3rd and 3? They just want to scream and yell about Mike Brown and Marvin Lewis. When the team is good, we talk about personnel, strategies. I mean, even the Bengals with the offseason they've had, a lot of the interesting questions about who they should keep, who they should pay. Like, those are really interesting discussions to have because they have some great players. And so I'm really excited at the possibility of being behind the microphone when the teams win a championship. That's what I live for. We came really close with the Bengals a couple years ago. I flew out to LA and I did shows from Los Angeles for a week. And that was a lot of fun. And then I went to the game, and my bosses were like, cool, we're putting you up in LA, you're going to do the show. It's a lot of work. I didn't have a lot of support. It was kind of my own engineer, producer, driver, whatever. But it was awesome. And then they said, well, we got you a credential for the game. And I said, I don't want one. I'm going to the game with my buddies. Because when the Bengals win the Super Bowl, I need someone to hug. And if you're in the press box, God knows you're not allowed to hug anybody. You're barely allowed to talk. So I went to the game, and they said, well, all right, we'll get someone to fill in for you on Monday, because you're not going to be able to make it back. And I said, what are you talking about? I'm going to go to the game, I'm going to hang out, I'm going to hug my buddies, and then I'm going to take the very last red-eye flight back to Cincinnati, because since I was 10 years old, I dreamed of being on the air the day after the Bengals won the title. Hell no, I'm not missing a day of work. I'm not doing it from LA. I'm going to do it from Cincinnati, and unfortunately, that didn't happen. But I'm really enthusiastic about the possibility to do that here soon, and I think it can happen. And it starts with stars. And the two main pro sports teams in town have stars. Our business, I'm not going to talk much about radio because who cares? But our business, it's really interesting how it's changed. I started in radio when I was in college. I was Mike McConnell's intern. And you guys might know Mike McConnell hosted his last show a week ago this past Friday. Legendary career. I started in 1997 producing his show, and long story short, became a part-time board operator producer while I was still in college, and then had the chance to become Jim Scott's producer. Legendary morning man in Cincinnati. We lost Jim last June. Fought a battle with ALS, and we miss him to death. We're going to have a celebration of his career and life down in St. Joe's on June 28th this year. But I was Jim's producer, and slowly worked my way and did some producing and some engineering, and was an assistant program director for a while, which wasn't much fun, but always wanted to be on the air. And so that was, I started 28 years ago to watch some of the changes in our business. When I started in radio, we didn't have social media. We were still really trying to figure out the internet. If you did a radio show, the show ended and it just kind of disappeared into the ether. Now we take every show and we podcast it. So my show's on from 3 to 6. But I talk to people all the time who are like, yeah, I listen to it the next morning. Or I listen to it at night. Yeah, or I catch up during the weekend. I listen to all your shows during the weekend, and it's like, wow, that's just not something we had when I started in radio. We had far less competition. In sports, I counted the other day, there are 24 Bengals podcasts that I subscribe to. 24. We're going to have to cut that number by half, because some of those aren't very good. But, there's a lot of podcasts. With the Reds, there's a lot of podcasts. There are more places for the audience to go. There's more niche broadcasting. In our game, I got to appeal to as many people as possible. So I have to talk about broad subjects. But you can find the nerdiest, wonkiest baseball podcast that's talking about what Reds rookie ball prospects are doing, down to the most minute stats. And there's an audience for that. So there's so much more competition. I think attention spans are shorter than they've ever been. And there's good and there's bad to that. It used to be when I started in radio, if you wanted to tell the host he's an idiot, and that happens, believe it or not, you had to get on the phone, wait on hold, and then hope he or she took your call, and then you could get on the air and tell the host he's an idiot. Now you can just send me a tweet, and God knows people do that. Or you can send an email. Or as one guy did last year, you could show up at the radio station and wait outside my car. So that wasn't that happened. I was waiting outside my car, and he couldn't have been nicer. He just said, I got a bone to pick with you. And I'm like, what the hell's about to happen? He was angry at something I had said about the Bengals, and he's like, yeah, just figured I'd come down and talk to you in person. It's like, yeah, man, why don't you not do that? So, I also think like people are less willing to engage. I've noticed this. I've been on the air for 16 years. And one of my favorite things to do on the air has always been, I like it when people call in and disagree. Like, as a listener, there's nothing worse. And I grew up listening to talk radio, man. And there was nothing worse than like listening to a show where every caller agreed with the host. Like, this is no knock on his politics. We're not here for that. My grandma used to listen to Rush Limbaugh on her Breezeway. And every caller was like, yeah, Rush, you're the man. I'm like, okay, like, is anybody going to call and challenge him? The shows that I've always loved to listen to, and the shows that I've always wanted to host are the ones where I put an opinion out there and somebody calls in and disagree. And we have a fun debate. We're not calling each other names. We're not going to hang up on you. Like, we have a chat. You might change my mind, I might change yours, and we're talking about sports, we're not solving the world's problems. I think people are less willing to do that than ever before, which I think is really sad. We had a woman that called our show about 3 weeks ago because she crushed me on Twitter for something I said about the Bengals, and I tweeted her, I sent her the phone number of the show, and she called in, and we had like this fun 8-minute conversation where at the end of it we still disagreed with each other. But it's like, I wish there was more of that. I think people are a little more siloed than they used to be. They're not as willing to engage in a friendly debate. But as much as our business has changed, I think what's really interesting about sports, and really interesting from where I sit, is like, sports are changing. And some might argue maybe for the better, some might argue maybe for the worse. I think sports fans are smarter than they've ever been. Because we have pretty much all the information that they have in front offices, right? Like, when Nick Kroll was the GM of the Reds, we have not all of the same data, but if you go to the right places, you could find some of the same data he's using to make decisions about the team. We know to the dime what the Bengals are spending on every single player. We know how much the salary cap is. Like, we know, we have so much more statistical information. We know so much more about players, how teams are constructed, and it's made sports fans much, much smarter. I think that's a real challenge for sports talk radio hosts. I've said this to some of the people I work with, like, you got to be prepared, man, because those folks listening, they're smarter than they were 20 years ago. They have more information, and so if you're not prepared, you're going to get caught. I think it's a challenge for teams. You know, I think there are teams that in the past, and Charlie, don't get mad at me for saying this. I think the Reds did this a long time ago, right? They once signed a pitcher named Eric Milton. And Eric Milton was a home run machine, like just a bag team. And Great American Ballpark's like the easiest place in the world to hit home runs. And they went and got Eric Milton, gave him a big contract. Eric Milton had some good years in Minnesota. And I remember talking about it with my dad, and my dad's like, well, at least they did something. I'm like, yeah. That's what you like. How about do something good? And I think there are a lot of times, way back when teams would make moves like that and kind of feel like, fans are just going to like it when you did something. Teams can't do that anymore because fans know them. And so I think it's made, for what I do, it's more challenging, but it's a lot more fun. And I think it creates better conversations. It's why when I watch TV shows and all they're doing is debating LeBron versus Jordan, it's like, that's played out. Also, there are so many better, interesting conversations to have that your viewers and listeners can follow along with because fans are smarter than they've ever been. But we have some interesting things happening in sports that I think are going to make them really worth following. Baseball has, I think, enjoyed a huge resurgence because they've installed a pitch clock. The games move faster. We've got some really good young players. But you also have a lot of fans who look at the disparity between the Dodgers and what they spend. It seems like the Pirates and the Reds and a handful of others, they can spend. And I think there's a lot of fans who want to see that change. So does baseball do anything to change that? And do they do that via work stoppage? Does a work stoppage slow down all the positive momentum from the last couple of years when the on-field product has been great? And I mean, it bothers me to no end when I hear people say like, baseball's not as cool as it used to be. Like, watch the sport. The sport now is awesome. Like, there are, like, when I was a kid, batting orders had like 4 good hitters. Now, like, I watch games and I'm like, holy crap, 1 through 9 can get ahead. I'm bringing in like relievers in the 6th inning who are throwing 98. I didn't have when I was a kid. We have such good athletes. They've done so many good things to the sport. But it's, you know, you got the haves and you got the have-nots, and a lot of fans feel like their teams can't compete. Can baseball do anything about that? We have a professional soccer team here in town, and the FC Cincinnati is celebrating, this is their 10th season in Major League Soccer. And you talk about something that changed for us. I remember the 2014 World Cup. I didn't grow up playing soccer. I never been to a soccer game. I couldn't tell you how many players were on the field. But my wife and I were living downtown at the time, and they had a watch party at Fountain Square for the U.S. men's team. And this is 2014. I was 36 years old, 37. I was about to be 37 years old. So we go down, and it's packed. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, dude, I'm the oldest person here. Like, I'm at that point, not old at all, not like any of you guys, but I'm like... I'm looking around, and I'm like, okay, like, I need to start learning about soccer. I need to work soccer into our show. And I remember, like, going into work the next day, telling my producer, hey, look, get the soccer coach at UC or Xavier on to talk about the World Cup. And he's like, what? Like, dude, that's how the young people are, man. Like, they're paying attention to soccer. They're watching matches in Europe, and we're not going to do that. But we got to start, like, we got to wrap our arms around this. And then we found out we were getting a soccer team. And my reaction was like, I think everybody else was like, yeah, cool, we're getting a soccer team. Like, we've had arena football, we've had, 1,000 minor league hockey teams. It's like, whatever. And as it turned out, they've actually done a lot of really good things. They've come off as a major league organization. The games at Nippert Stadium, people just rushed for it because they were affordable, different, the team was winning. The games were 2 hours. And we had a lot of folks who were like, dude, I think a 7 o'clock soccer game would be done at 9 o'clock. I had no idea. Like, neither did I. It's awesome. But what I think is kind of interesting is the team, since they've moved to Major League Soccer, moved into a new stadium right over there, and it's a great stadium, it feels to me like the interest has kind of plateaued. I think that league has really hurt itself by doing a streaming-only league, where most of the matches, it's not streaming-only, but most of the matches are on Apple TV. And I just don't think you're getting casual fans who are going to go, yeah, I'm going to subscribe to MLS Season Pass and watch them on Saturday night. And I've talked about this with folks who work for FC Cincinnati, where it's like, how do you get new fans if they can't see your games? And it's a real big challenge. And I think that's going to be really worth paying attention to. Sports, when I got into sports talk radio, nobody talked about women's sports. I got phone calls last week about the women's Final Four. In a million years, I never thought that would happen. We didn't talk about Major League Soccer, and now we have a Major League Soccer team. We didn't have, combat sports, which, we really don't spend a lot of time on our show, but, that's something that, could you imagine, like, UFC events would be like these huge Main Street events 20 years ago? Not at all. College sports are extraordinarily interesting right now. My favorite sport is college basketball. And I'm a diehard UC fan, but I love it. People don't like when I say this. I like it when everybody's doing it. At my high school and college years in the 90s, I used to listen to Andy Furman, Lance McAllister, Paul Sturgeon, Tim Lewis, the 2 anchor guys, and the centerpiece in the 90s. The Bengals weren't very good, and in the late 90s, the Reds weren't very good. You talk college teams year-round. And it was UC fans, Xavier fans, Kentucky fans, Ohio State fans, IU fans, and all those teams, all those programs are really good. I think it's a blast when everybody's good. College sports, we have UCLA and Rutgers in the Big Ten. We have Stanford on the Pacific Ocean in the Atlantic Coast Conference. There's some stuff that just, even a sports guy, I'm watching the ACC tournament 3 weeks ago, and Cal is playing it. I'm like, oh yeah, Cal's in the same conference as, dude, makes sense. But that's created a lot of issues in college sports. It's created some cool stuff in college sports. How much more conference realignment do we have? College basketball fans are up in arms because we have the transfer portal, where Richard Pitino just took over Xavier and literally has to recruit a whole new team. The players can just bowl. The players are asking for more money every single year. I am a huge proponent of everybody getting paid. I'm doing a free speech today, so I get paid for this, but there's no rules. There's literally no rules in college sports. It's NBA, NFL, and Major League Baseball, there are rules. Like you're going to play so many years before you get to free agency, and players who have played in the big leagues for 10 years can veto a trade if they've been with the same team for 5. Like there's rules, collectively bargained rules in college sports. There are none. People say it's the Wild West, and it's cliche, but it is. I talked to college football and basketball coaches. I talked to a UC football coach yesterday. They have their spring game on Saturday. It's like, we're getting through spring ball, then the portal's going to open up again, and then we're going to have to go get like 6 more guys, and we're probably going to lose like 7 or 8 more guys. And it's like, so what this looks like in 4 or 5 years, I think is going to be really, really interesting. You saw in the NCAA tournament this year, we had very few upsets, which led to great ratings because all the good teams were playing late in the tournament. But there's a real fear that you're going to have it look more like pro sports, where there's a handful of schools that have a ton of resources and can buy players, and then schools, quite frankly, like UC and Xavier, who used to be able to get a McDonald's All-American, or maybe get a guy who's going to go to the NBA. If they get him, the guy's not going to stay, not because he's going to go to the NBA, but because he's going to go to a school that can pay him more money. So I think that's going to be really interesting. And I also think the relationship between leagues and fans is changing. Going to a game has never been more expensive. I mean, my brother lives in New York and took his son to a Brooklyn Nets game, right? The Brooklyn Nets were terrible. Took his son to a Brooklyn Nets game, sat 3 rows from the top, and he's like, by the time we parked, by the time we got the tickets, by the time we had a pretzel, it was like a $700 night. Dude, and so games have become more expensive. Being a sports fan has never been more expensive, right? I mentioned MLS with Apple TV. My brother is a big Yankees fan. The Yankees are a popular commodity. They have games on Amazon, Apple, Roku, Channel 11, I think, in New York, and the Yes Network. He's like, there's only anybody who has had a game go on a streaming service that at some point you're like, enough, right? The NFL's putting Christmas Day games on Netflix and Amazon, and you folks look well-heeled, so it's probably not that big of a deal to you, but there's a lot of people who are like, I just want to watch my team play, and I don't want to have to get 8 subscription services, and there's only going to be more of that, and so I really wonder how much that's going to fracture fan bases. I'll even say, with the Reds, what has made talking about them in recent years kind of difficult is there's a lot of people who can't watch the games, or haven't been able to watch the games. It's changed a little bit because of the current setup of FanDuel Sports Network, but I have friends who YouTube TV, they couldn't watch the Reds, so it's like, Mo, we have no idea what you're talking about when you talk about last night's 6th inning decision made by the manager, and my response is always like, well, we broadcast the games on the radio, so you can vote for this. But I just think it's a really interesting time because of how sports are changing, how fan habits are changing, what's happening with the economy. But amid all of that, it really helps if your teams have stars, and our teams have stars. And I can't wait to see in the coming years if our teams can win with those stars. I think I'm done. Have a nice day. Is there another 50-50 round or something? What happens now? We give away more questions? Oh boy! Oh, this is my favorite part. My favorite part. Randy's still here. You got the books ready? 4 kids dead. What do we got?
Well, quick question.
How does the microphone work? Hit the on button.
You're talking about the college sports and the changes that are going on. The NCAA see that changing the, kind of structure of college sports as we go forward? Does that get us away from some of the Wild West or not?
I'm going to give you a really bad answer. I don't know. And I asked that question. I have a friend who's on the staff at Notre Dame, the basketball staff at Notre Dame. And I called him over the weekend and I go, explain this to me like I'm stupid. And he goes, that's not going to be a challenge. And at the end of like 90 seconds, I'm like, dude, you've lost me. But his response was like, we don't know how this is going to work. It's going to, I think number one now, and I don't like this, I think there's going to be a level of transparency involved in what athletes are making, and I don't think that's good. Like, I think you're going to have weirdos who now know what a 19-year-old kid makes to play college basketball, and that doesn't sit well with me. But I think you're going to have direct revenue sharing, which is good. You're going to have salary cap, essentially, which is good. You're going to have less emphasis on collectives, which, if you don't know, I'll be brief here. A collective is, Cincinnati has one, pretty much every school has one. It's a group of people who are independent of the school that effectively raise money to pay college athletes. And there's a charitable component, and for the most part, the athletes live up to what they have to do to get the money, but their impact is going to be severely diminished, and that's probably a good thing. I was watching the women's national championship game on Sunday, and they were talking about how this could phase out walk-ons, which I think is unfortunate. Walk-ons are obviously kids who are part of a program and pay their own way. I think walk-ons are how a lot of kids enter coaching, or enter a career in that sport. How many successful college basketball coaches started because they were walk-ons, not because they were really going to help the team on the floor, because they learned how to coach. That was the beginning of their journey. I think that's really, really unfortunate if that's where we end up. But it's going to provide some structure for something that now has no structure. And people say that, and folks sometimes think, you're exaggerating. There was no structure to college athletics. No. And again, I'm in favor of, I want everybody to get paid. But you have to have rules. And this is going to provide some degree of structure, even if it's really hard for a lot of people to grasp. I asked Scott Satterfield the other day on the air, and I know he was here last week. Can you explain to me what's going on with his household? And he's like, no, I'm a football coach. Well, this kind of affects you, but it's fine, Scott, whatever. But I think everybody's still trying to figure out what this is going to mean for college sports, but also what it means for their programs individually. Longest non-answer I've ever given. We're raising hands. Go ahead. I like this. This is good. Yeah.
What do you think the negative effect could be with all the sports betting on the sports betting?
Well, first of all, if you go to fanduel.com/low, you get $200 in free points. It's easier to access, right? It's whenever something's easier to access, there's going to be people who probably shouldn't access it. I think everybody's aware of that pitfall. But I actually think, and the ads get too many, right? I listened to a sports talk radio show in St. Louis, and I counted the ads for gambling companies, and they were only outweighed by ads for, don't get mad at me for saying this, erectile dysfunction treatments. And it's like, can your sales staff go see a car dealer? Can we get somebody else? We've had betting scandals in sports, going back to 1919. I think now, a lot of folks worry about, there's going to be an athlete on the tape, a line is moving and there's something sort of nefarious going on, and so, maybe there's something that shouldn't happen. I'm not doing a very good job of explaining this, but I think it makes it easier to detect bad actors in sports who might be throwing a game or who might be compromising their team's chances of winning because they're on the team. I think it will be interesting in 5 or 10 years to look back and see how many people got into financial difficulty because of the increased accessibility of sports wagering. What I will tell you is this: I don't love to bet, but I think the language of sports gambling is interesting, and I think it's created a way to talk about sports and games that's different, right? Does a team cover? Why did the line move? We do it with the Reds every year. Can they hit their season win total, which was 78.5? I think in some good ways changed how we talk about sports. I think it's made it easier to regulate line movements, if I'm making sense, and detect things that might be happening. For instance, there was a dude with the UC baseball program who was connected to this Alabama baseball scandal, and the reason why people found out that this college baseball game was maybe being compromised was an insane amount of money was wagered legally here in Cincinnati. That makes it easier to grab the coaches on the team that is now maybe not going to win because the coach has money on the game and get rid of them. You couldn't do that when gambling was illegal. It's more accessible to people. And do I kind of wonder about that? Yeah, my 13-year-old nephew, with the NCAA tournament, was talking about point spreads. I'm not really going to have this conversation with you. And so we're just going to have to figure out. I didn't give you a very good answer because I am in favor of legalized gambling, but I do recognize its potential bad consequences. I think it's going to be interesting to see where we are.
Well, for today's 9-year-olds like you thinking about being on the radio, do you think today's 9-year-olds, there'll be jobs like yours? And then second question, working for a big media company like iHeart, do you worry about your job?
Ooh. Is this being recorded? Will jobs like mine always be around? There's always going to be content creators, but radio is not as cool as it used to be. We hire kids now who don't listen to the radio. It drives me nuts, in all honesty. Why would you come work at a radio? Why don't you come work at a radio station if you don't listen to the radio? But that's just, kids are consuming Spotify and podcasts, and even when they listen to radio shows, they're listening to them via podcast, and commercials are stripped away. So I think there's always going to be room for what we do. And what we do is unique. It's live, it's instantaneous, it's local. And I think there's always going to be a thirst and a desire and an audience for it. But I think our industry, we're still playing catch up. I remember we had a meeting in 2005. And literally, the guy who ran the meeting was like, this internet is here to stay. It's awesome. We could have had this meeting 5 years ago. So I think we will. Is radio going to go away? No. But we have to figure out ways to, number one, get younger. It drives me nuts that we don't have interns anymore. So we're just not even opening the door to kids to come in and go, man, maybe this would be a cool way to make living life. That drives me nuts. We aren't doing a very good job of developing young talent. And we were slow to embrace the internet as an industry. My colleague, Lance McAllister, who's been doing sports talk radio in town for a long time, started his own this is where we're going. So he did his own blog, and it took the radio station like 5 years to go, yeah, that's a great idea. Like, as an industry, really slow. I think there's always going to be room for local content, instantaneous content, live content, relatable content, and I don't think that's going away. But we have more competition. In terms of me and my job, you know, look, media companies will lay people on. I mean, you can't get, I mean, I've watched it happen to a lot of people that I really like. As long as our show makes money, I think we're good. Our show makes money. Rule number one, I've been told since I was 19 years old, if you're bringing in revenue, you're good. Not every job brings in revenue. I've watched so many people on the air and off who are great at what they do lose their gig because they had a non-revenue job. I'm lucky that my job's a revenue job. Now, if we can't sell a commercial on it, if advertisers turn away from us, if I do something stupid and I'm toxic, well, then I'm probably done. But as long as we're making iHeart money, I think we'll always be okay. But sure, I mean, I'm not naive to the way, you know, I've watched ESPN blow out people and own my businesses. So I don't worry about me as much, but maybe I should. Do you know something I don't?
It's like, no, right there.
Thank you.
So, Mo, we're making a donation in your name for the Polio Now campaign, which is the campaign that we're this close to finishing up throughout the world. And we also want to give you a coin that has the beautiful skyline of Cincinnati on the one side and our four-way test on the other. So when you think about the beautiful skyline and you think about four-way testing, Rotary, we want to appreciate you, everything you do for the Cincinnati community. And as a fellow West Sider, appreciate
absolutely
you coming on.
Thank
So,
you. Will I be invited back?
Yes.
And will the GE CEO be remotely as entertaining as me? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.